Hi. So in this video we're gonna take a look at a new feature for my search and sub script that I just finished implementing. And this new feature will allow you to search through subtitle files like the search and sub script was already able to do. But now it can also allow you to watch the search results in MPV player. So let me demonstrate how that works. Let's see here. So here in this folder I have 4 video files with subtitle files, and if I run search and subs -t and search for the word text, for example, it will search through all of the subtitle files in the current working directory. I could also pass the file names explicitly, but the default is to search in the current working directory. So now if I press enter, we get this output where we can see what matches were found in what files. And yeah, this is basically the kind of the core functionality of search and subs that existed prior to this prior to this version. That's what it already was able to do. But now you can also pass this -p option, and this will allow you to watch the search results in MPV player. So let's do that.
Bilder, det kan vara texter. Att publicera texter som är förståeliga för andra barn.
På ett sätt som absolut jag aldrig skulle göra med deras texter eller så.
Jobba med att lägga ut text.
Bilder, det kan vara texter. Det kan också vara berättelser.
So as you can see, we got this this video where we can watch all the search results, and for each search result we have a chapter generated. So if I take a look at all the chapters, they are they're also named by just taking the first line from the subtitle and making it the chapter title. But basically, yeah, you can watch all of the search results here, and this has been generated on the fly. So this is what this new feature allows you to do. So let's close this for now. So this is basically the main thing that this script is now able to do. So now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how how this works, and I also wanted to mention how I got this idea, or where I got this idea from. This person submitted a feature request on my GitHub, which I really appreciate because it reminded me of kind of essentially the same idea that I had before. I received this request. I thought it would be like, oh, like MPV player has this EDL functionality, and I bet there's a way to like to also play the search results in search and subs. And so this person brought it up, and I was like, oh, okay, this is probably now it probably is a good time to implement it. So that's what I did. So now a little bit about how it works. Basically, it works by using this. Probably it's fair to say that it's a little known functionality of MPV player, which is the EDL functionality, and the EDL stands for edit decision list, which basically what this format allows you to do is to create a text file where you can specify ranges from different video, audio, or subtitle files, and essentially create an edit based on segments of those files, and then you can simply play this text file as though it was just an actual video file, and MPV will automatically pull all of the information from the various files wherever they are on your system and play them as a video or audio, like could be audio too, but this is what it does. So this is a very interesting feature, and I already made another video about it on my channel. It was called editing videos in MPV player. It's this one. So if you're interested in learning more about the EDL format and how it works, go ahead and watch this video. I'll leave a link to it in the description. And I also wrote a script, which I also talk about in this same video, that allows you to create those EDL files more easily as opposed to just editing them by hand. So yeah, that's that video that I made that talks about the EDL format in more detail, and I also go through a lot of the things that are discussed in this documentation. So yeah, I don't go through every single thing that is discussed here, but I do talk about most of the kind of a lot of the things that are mentioned here. So yeah, and I'll link this documentation in the video description as well. So this is how this came about and how it works basically. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the well, here's the repository for this script in its current state. I haven't updated the GitHub yet, but when I release this video, there will be a link in the description to the GitHub page to the Search and Subs GitHub page, where you'll be able to download this script and install it on your system. All of the installation instructions will be in this README file, which will also be displayed directly on that page that you will find a link to in the description, the repository page. So the installation instructions will be there. I also made another video about Search and Subs on my channel. It's this one. And in that video, I basically discuss all the functionality, or like not all of it, but a lot of the kind of functionality that already existed in this script prior to me adding this MPV integration. But yeah, basically all of the functionality that I talk about in this video still works the same, at least at this point. Yeah, go ahead and watch that video if you're interested in learning more about Search and Subs and how it works. And also I think I also talk about the installation process a little bit in that video. So yes, that will be also linked in the description. But basically, when you download these files from the repository, you'll get the script itself, the README, the license, the sample config file. Then there's also a changelog file that I just added because this is like the second version of this script. So now there's two versions. So now there's something to log. Yeah, in that file I'll basically keep track of all the changes that I made and like all the what bugs were fixed, what was added, and so on. And then there's also a man page. If you don't know how to make the man program find the man page, it is also explained in the installation instructions in the README file. But basically, let me now open the man page. This is already an updated version. And let's take a look at some of the things that I added here. The first thing is basically in this description section. Now there's this mpv edl generation subsection where I mentioned kind of a few things that are important to know about this edl generation functionality. The first one is the dependencies. So you have to have mpv, ffmpeg, and lua installed on your system. So I'm on Debian Linux, and on Debian you can install these by running sudo apt install mpv, ffmpeg, and lua 5.4 is the latest version that they have in Debian repositories right now. You could also install like 5. I also tested it with 5.1 and it still works, but yeah, 5.4 is the one that I have installed on my system. So this is how to install it on Debian. On other systems, just check with your repository on the package names, but basically it should be pretty straightforward. It should be very close to what I'm showing you right now. So I'll just mention this just in case. This is probably not terribly, not really necessary. I'm pretty sure that if you install those packages like I just described, everything should work. But the binaries that you need to have available on your path, which you can check if they are available by typing which and then one of the names that I'm about to mention. So try which mpv, and it should output a path which ff probe, because this is the specific utility that is part of the ffmpeg package that search and subs uses. But yes, if you install ffmpeg, you'll also get ffprobe. So at least you should, but basically you have to have ffprobe available on your path. So you should get some output from which as well, and then which Lua should also give you an output. Notice that note that it's not Lua 5.4, which also works, but just Lua. So I thought I'd just mention this just in case, so that the information is out there too. Okay, so those are the dependencies. Now let's talk a little bit about how your files should be named so that search and subs can actually connect, like find the corresponding video or audio file to each of the subtitles where it searches for matches. So essentially this is how it works. So when I ran this command, it searched for text in all of these, each one of these SRT files. So what the script does is it removes the SRT extension and also this language extension if it is there. And then the remaining part should be the name of your video file, plus of course the extension of the video file. The video file can also be an audio file. In that case it will still work, but you just get a black screen, but the subtitle will still display and everything, so that that will work. And also if you have both video and audio files named according to this this scheme next to the subtitle file in the same directory, then the video file will be preferred. But if there's only an audio file that is named appropriately, then that will be picked. That is done so that, like, if you, for example, have a video file with some external audio tracks, so that the video file gets picked. So this is kind of the main things that you need to know about how search and subs matches video files to subtitle files. You can read more about this in this part of the man page about how this algorithm works. So Okay, so this is all about the kind of the introductory stuff. Now let's take a look at some of the new options that I added, that are all basically connected to this mpv-edl functionality. Now, if you take a look at this options section, you might notice that I made some additions to it. If you saw the previous version of the man page for search and subs, basically what I added is this introductory part, which explains how to pass arguments to options depending on whether they take a required or an optional argument. Now this is a bit of like an idiosyncrasy of the option parser that I'm using. It's called get-opt. This one, it's like a standard utility basically for parsing options in shell scripts. Yeah, but it has this one weird idiosyncrasy in how, like, basically if an option has an optional argument, you have to use a specific format to pass this argument to it. There will be one such option amongst the ones that we will be discussing, so we'll have an opportunity to take a look at this example. But right now I just want to mention that this section is here. If you ever get lost in regards to how to pass a value to an option, like if something doesn't work, you can check here what the syntax is. Now, I also split the options list into subsections because it got pretty long. So I created a general subsection, then a statistics subsection, and these two subsections contain almost all of the options that existed in search and subs up until now before adding this new functionality. And there's also this other section at the end. These options also existed before I added the MPV integration. And there's also this MPV-EDL generation section where all of the options that are related to this functionality are described. So this is what we're gonna take a look at right now, at all of these options. Now, let's see. So we ran this command already, and I used this -p option. It's the first one on the list. The long version is edl-play, and what it does is it simply tells search and subs that, like, I want to play these search results in the MPV player when the search finishes. So so when it does that, it creates some temporary files in a cache directory, and that directory specifically is home.cache search and subs edl. That's where it puts all of the files. Right now there's nothing there, and the reason for that is because by default it deletes the temporary files after MPV player closes. But there's a way to keep them, and I'm going to show it to you right now. And there's also like we're going to be looking at this temporary folder for a while because I want to demonstrate some other options that change the way those files get generated. And I'm going to use this watch command that allows us to just continuously execute any command that we want and monitor its output basically and refresh it automatically. So I'm gonna actually use the tree command here on that directory, and I'll select -a for all, so that we can also see hidden files. We'll need that later. And I'll also pass the C option so that we have colorization enabled. And then press enter and we get this output. Right now that directory is empty. And basically, like I said, by default it deletes the temporary files once MPV player closes. But there's a way to keep them, and to do that you need to pass the -k option, or this longer version, or its long version is edl-play-keep-temporary. So if I pass a k here and play it again,
bilder, det kan vara texter.
you can see that we now have files here that were not deleted and that were kept. So let me actually change to that cache directory in this separate tab for a moment here, and let's see, search and subs, edl. And basically we have 4 files here. There's the main edl file, which is called search results.edl. Then there's 2 secondary edl files, search results subtitles and search results video.edl. And then there's a chapters file. So I could use mpv to play it in the same way that search and subs plays those files. Since it uses an external chapters file, we need to pass it to mpv by using the --chapters file option, and then pass the chapters file. That's the subtitles, chapters. And you also have to use the equal sign with mpv, so that works. So I couldn't pass it as a separate argument, separated from the previous one by a space. So chapters file equals search results chapters ff metadata, and then we can pass search results.edl as the main file.
Bilder.
And we can play it, and it looks exactly the same as when it does when search and subs launches this player. Now you could like omit the chapters file
Bilder.
and would still play, but there would be no chapters. So this is how that works at the moment. Basically, since there's also other options here, which we'll get to in a moment, but basically you can also save files with this script, and what I'm about to mention is related to that, so that's why I'm skipping a bit ahead here. But basically, potentially, like if you saved a file somewhere in your system so that you would play it later, it would probably be kind of complicated to do this every time. But at the moment, I found no better way, and basically this is the way to do it at the moment. What I think is possible to do is to write an mpv script that would look for an appropriately named chapters file in the same directory as the video or audio file that you're playing, and load it automatically. I imagine that such a script could be made, and I think that because I saw one particular script that did something similar, but they used a different format, and basically it's not going to work in this case. I will leave a link to that script in the description in case you want to take a look, but basically this is how it is at the moment, and the idea for a chapters file script I think is an interesting one, so maybe that's something to look into in the future. Basically, yeah, that's how you play the files generated by search and subs. So, okay. Now let's take a look at some other options. I can close this temporary directory right now. We don't need it at this moment. So let's take a look at these edl-play-before and edl-play-after options. So let's run the same search again.
Bilder, det kan vara texter.
So you can see or you can hear that basically the segment of this video file starts too late. It's or because
Bilder, det kan
she starts talking at this point and we can't hear the beginning of the phrase. So these A and B, or B and A option rather I should say, because it's before and after. So these B and A options, they allow you to add a time margin essentially, to add sometime before the match and sometime after the match, and so that you could include a larger range of the video file in the EDL. So if I use the -A option and pass it something like 0.4, maybe like 4 yeah, like 400 milliseconds, 4/10 of a second, and if I press enter now,
bilder, det kan vara texter.
Like this is why I like it's sort of like reversed, because B is before, but I think of A as coming before B, some part of my mind does anyway, and so, but it's B as 0.4.
Det kan vara bilder, det kan vara texter.
So now we can hear the entire phrase.
Det kan vara bilder, det kan vara texter.
Barn att
And of course it adds this for every single search result in the output, but that's kind of the only thing I was able to come up with at this time as to how to adjust those ranges. So like you can make a global adjustment, and that is something, because some subtitle files might have like a consistent shift in the way that like they made those subtitles. Maybe they start a bit later, or they end a bit early all the time. So you can this can be a little bit helpful to compensate for that. So this is what the B and A options do. Now let's skip ahead a little bit in this man page, and let's take a look at this edl-structure option, because this is related to something that I already this is why I set up this watch command, basically, to demonstrate this more easily. So let's see. So the option is -u or --edl-structure. So what it says here in the man page is that this determines the structure of the set of generated EDL files, and then it gives a few values that you can use, and the default one is flat. So I'll use this K option again that we already are familiar with, which will keep the cache files so we can see what they look like once I close the player. So let me remove the -u for now.
Bilder, det kan vara
So it generated some file, and basically this is the default value of u, or like this is the default behavior if you don't pass anything to u, because this is basically what the flat structure means. This is what the flat structure looks like. It means that all of the files are put into the same directory. So all of the 4 files are put in the same directory. Now, if I use a different value here, the subdir value, for example, let's go through them one by one. Subdir is the next one. So if I use the subdir value,
bilder,
now we can see that we have a different structure here. The files that are secondary, you could say, to the main edl file are put into this subdirectory called basically the name of this main edl file plus dot files, and then all the other files are put in there. So this way it's kind of more like less clutter, maybe, at least in some situations. Like the main application of this is basically when you save, when you want to save a file, and we'll talk about saving files shortly. But basically, in cache, it will still use whatever structure you tell it to use. And obviously, in the temporary files directory, it's not that important, but it still generates them according to the value of this option. So this is what we're going to be using right now to understand like what these different values do. So this is the subdir value. But yeah, like when you save those files, you might prefer one of these structures depending on what you want to do, if you want to have all the files in the same directory or not, and there's options for that. So let's take a look at some of the other possibilities. So the next one is subdir hidden. And as you can probably guess, what this does is it puts basically it does the same thing as the subdir does, but the directory is hidden now. It added a dot at the beginning of the directory name. So that's subdir hidden. Now the next one is subdir except chapters, and you can probably guess what this does as well.
bilder,
But here's what it does. Basically, it puts all of the files, all of the secondary files into the subdirectory except for the chapters file. And that's the reason for that is because you might, since you might want to have the chapters file in the same directory as the main file, because it's sort of like it's in a way kind of like a subtitle file. You might want to keep them in the same directory, but all these other files are just like they are referenced by, or they are referred to by the main file, and so they might be put away into this separate directory. So that's the kind of the thinking there. So subdir except chapters, and you can also do subdir hidden except chapters, which
bilder,
obviously does what you'd probably guessed it does. It puts does the same thing as the subdir except chapters, but the directory is now hidden, and we have the subtitles and video edls in this hidden directory, but we have the main edl and the chapters file in the main directory. So that's how the edl-structure option works. Now before we talk about the saving, yeah, let's do it right now. Let's talk about the mpv-opts command. So this, or not command, but option. You can close this now. We don't need that anymore. So mpv-opts allows you to tell search and subs, or rather, it allows you to basically configure how MPV player will look and in what configuration it gets launched by search and subs. You can pass additional options to MPV player by using this this mpv-opts option. There's no short version of this option, so it has to be --mpv-opts because I ran out of letters basically. And so we don't need the K anymore. So let's do first. Let's do something simple. So --mpv-opts. You could do space or an equal sign. I'll do an equals sign. So, and I'll also quote the value, but the quotes aren't necessary. I'm just using them here for so that it's easier to read. I mean, they would be necessary if you passed several options and there were spaces in the value, but I was just planning to pass this one option just to demonstrate it. Basically, just easier to read when there are quotes in this case. So if I just pass this -- pause option, so this option is MPV's option. I'm passing options to MPV directly. So like when I now press enter, the player launches, but it's paused. So I told MPV how I wanted to pop up. Now you can also see that there's a bit of kind of additional things here in the value that you can pass to mpv-opts. Basically, like the deal is that you can precede this option value by either a single colon or a double colon. Yeah, like there's a written explanation here in the man page as well, but let me just try to explain it kind of verbally. This is probably going to be easier than going through that written one. So basically, yeah, actually before I get to explaining that, I'll need to mention something else, because this is most useful, like that colons syntax is most only makes sense if you basically use the configuration files for search and subs. Like in that case, it will make a difference really. So now I already mentioned this, but I'll just mention it again. There's a sample configuration file in the repository, so you can copy this config.bash file to search and subs, and so yeah, just basically config.bash, run this command, copy config.bash to home.config search and subs, create the search and subs directory if it's not there already. So once you did that, so this is the sample config file as you'll find it in the repo. So that's what you'll get if you do that copy command, and if you open that file, you'll get all of the options. Basically, these are all the same options that are listed on the man page. They're just written as bash variables for the script. Yeah, you'll get all of those options with the default values set to these variables, and all of them are commented out. So to change something, you can uncomment the value, and then you can start editing here. So basically, here's my config file on my system. As you can see, here's the path to the config file again, that I already mentioned before, just now. So yeah, I changed the value for the default glob option here, but I also set some default options for MPV here. And so basically, I only passed one option here. It's an option to the OSC script, which is a built-in script for MPV, and that script is responsible for displaying the seek bar at the bottom of the video. OSC stands for on-screen controller, and it has this visibility option, which I set to always. The reason I did that is because basically, yeah, let's launch that. Well, let me remove the mpv-opts for now so that we don't get confused. So let me run this again.
Bilder.
It basically refers to this seek bar, and I just wanted to be displayed by default when the MPV player opens, in case search and subs opens it, but like globally on my system by default it's hidden. But in this case I want to have it open on launch, and so that's why I set it there in the config file. Now if you're familiar with bash, this will probably be very easy for you to understand. If this doesn't look familiar to you, like this syntax of variable equals and then in parentheses you have some stuff. Basically this is a bash array, and you don't really, like, if you're not familiar with it, I'm not gonna explain kind of stuff about bash right now, but basically if you know how to pass options to MPV, let me just make up some fake stuff here. Another option. So let's say you want these options to be used when search and subs launches MPV. So you can just pass it all on the command line, test it out, see if the player launches the way you want it to, and then you can just copy all of these options from the command line and just paste them here, and this will work. Like the bash array behaves exactly as these like command line options in terms of syntax. Basically this will work perfectly. So so that's how you add options to MPV, or set kind of change the default value of mpv-opts, because the default value is just no options, and empty array. So okay, now you might notice that there is also this other option here that's also called similar to this one, but it's called option mpv-opts append equals 1. So basically the default behavior of search and subs is that these options that you pass here on the command line, so this this pause option that I set here, it is being added to whatever the default value is. And like if I had, like if the default value in the script, here's the script, like and here are all of the default values. So if this opt mpv-opts already had some options here, it would work just the same, but the config file basically replaces this value with whatever it is that you want. You basically can change the defaults by using the config file. So since right now this value is set to this pause option gets added to this array within the search and sub script as it runs, and in the end what gets passed to MPV is whatever is here in the config file and whatever it is that you added on the command line. And we can see that because if I press enter, the on-screen controller here is displayed like I told it, like I wanted it to, according to my config file, and the player is also paused. So now let's take a look at these colons and what they mean. Basically, here's a good place to look if you kind of forget what colons do. Basically, with a single colon, opts replace the previously set options, and previously set options refers to basically either the config file or whatever the default value is in the script, but the default value in the script is no options, so that's kind of not terribly relevant in practical terms, but that's how it works. That's the logic there. The previously set options, so yeah, when you pass a single colon, it tells search and subs like get rid of all the previously set stuff and just use only the options that I pass here on the command line. So if I now press enter, now the OSC is hidden because that's my default configuration on my system, and it goes according to that, because this thing in my config file, this one, it got erased because I passed one colon here. Now or here it also says that when a double colon is used, opts are appended to the previously set options. And opts, by the way, is this. That's what it refers to. So whatever value you pass on the command line. But we already did it without any colons, and like it still did the same thing. It appended it, right? So why would you need the double colon? Well, if you wanted to, you could change the default behavior, and you can uncomment this and remove this one. Basically, like, yeah, one means true and no value means false. Like that's kind of the only way to do it in Bash, because Bash doesn't have booleans like other programming languages do, and true and false are represented by something like this usually. Like, and this is a convention. I think that's how I always represent it in my scripts. I set the variable to 1 to mean true, and I set it to nothing, to an empty string, if it's false. And so you could change back to the behavior of these colons. You could change the default to not append but actually erase. And so in this case now I'm not going to add any colons. And if I open the player now, no, I think I didn't save the config file. Let me save that. And so now if I launch the player, now OSC is hidden, even though I didn't pass a single colon here to tell it explicitly, like erase all of the previously set options. So now if I wanted to override this current default that I just changed in the config file, I could use the double colon, and it would now what is it, like append the options to whatever is set in the config file. So basically it allows you to choose your preferred defaults, and whatever the other option is, you can always override it on the command line. That's why there's like all these ways of doing it. So yeah, this is the mpv-opts option. Is there anything else I need to explain here? No, I don't think so. Okay. All right, so now let's take a look at these edl-save-files options, and there's basically two of them. They are connected in the way that they work, and these two options are lowercase f edl-save-files-relative and uppercase f edl-save-files-absolute. Now, of course, as the name suggests, these options are for saving your EDL. Instead of generating the temporary files, they will be saved to wherever it is that you tell it to save them to. And we'll go over like these things in a second, like where to save them, save the file, and what to call it. But basically, when you use either dash lowercase f or dash uppercase f, the temporary files are not generated. Like, you're not working with the cache directory anymore. You're working with a different location that you of your choosing. So now, what is this location? So there's like there's several possibilities here of what you can do. First of all, this is one of those like options with an optional argument, and you can tell that by because the value here is enclosed in the square brackets. That's to say, that's like that part is optional. It can either be there or it can be omitted. It's explained, like I mentioned before, in this part of the manual. Basically, here is like a more concise representation, like a general one, of what we just saw in the dash f below. So it's dash dash option, and then in square brackets equals value. So that's what we see over here, edl-save-files-relative, and then in square brackets the value, which has its own syntax, but we'll get to that. So basically you can first of all, let's take a look at what happens when you, before we get to explaining all this, discussing this syntax, let's take a look at what happens when you don't pass any value to it, to either one of these options, either the lowercase f or the uppercase f. So yeah, let's not launch the player every time because we're going to be talking about saving files. Let's just focus on saving the files. So I'll also let me also open the watch again, but now let's do it on the current directory. If we can fit that on the screen. Not sure if we can, but well, yeah, something like this probably fine. Okay, so okay, let's try out the dash lowercase f. So if I run this, now we have some new files here. So the default behavior of dash lowercase f and dash uppercase f as well is to save the files to the current working directory. So the default path is the current working directory, and call the file search results.edl. Here it says that that's the default value. Search results, search underscore results.edl. So that's what we have here. This is the same structure that we get in the temporary directory by default, but it is, yeah, it's saved into a different place. We can also, of course, play that in mpv chapters file equals, have to use the equals with mpv chapters.ff metadata search results.edl,
Bilder.
and everything plays exactly as it did when we did the temporary files generation. So yes, so this is the default behavior. Now let's actually take a look at those files, because this will help you help us understand better what the difference is between edl-save-files-relative and edl-save-files-absolute, between the lowercase f and the uppercase f. So right now we use the lowercase f, so let's take a look at what we got when we used that. I'll open those files in a text editor. So it's also worth taking a look at those files to see, to kind of understand the format a little bit better. Basically, chapters file has all of the chapters. It's pretty straightforward, I think, to understand what we're looking at here. Then the search results.edl file, the main edl file, contains basically references to search results video.edl and search results subtitles.edl, and it puts them together as two streams that are running in parallel to each other. And the search results video.edl and the search results subtitles.edl are the remaining two files, which contain the actual ranges that are pulled from the video and the audio when MV plays that, all that stuff. So kind of running out of space here. But I guess let me close this for a second. We'll come back to that. Let me run that search again. Text. So we use the dash lowercase f to generate these. So these are the result of using the lowercase f option. Let's now try the uppercase one. And this will actually not work because we already have these files there, and we'll tell that the following files already exist, and it wouldn't want to overwrite them by default. But you can pass this dash y option to overwrite them. So let's do that because that's what we want. It runs. So now I'll refresh these files, and we see that the path has changed. In Vim, there's a nifty feature here that I can undo the actual refresh, and you can see the previous version. So what changed? What changed is this path. So in this version that came from the lowercase f, which in other words is edl-save-files-relative, there was a relative path to the SRT file and also to the video file. It's exactly works exactly the same in both of them. But so with the lowercase f, we get a relative path to the SRT and to the video. But with the uppercase f, we get an absolute path to the SRTs and the videos. So this is the difference between the lowercase f and the uppercase f. Essentially, which one you want to use, it depends on what you want to do, basically. If you want to keep this folder intact, like everything, maybe you have some folder that has like subfolders with videos and stuff, and you know you won't and you basically want to keep those EDL files such that you could move that entire folder somewhere. So right now I could take this this folder that I have here, this entire folder, and move it somewhere else, and these EDL files would still play if they were generated with the actually with this one, or the so they would still play if they were generated with the lowercase f, with the edl-save-files-relative option, because this is a relative path, and wherever I move this folder, the path remains the same. It's just like this file in the same directory, and it will remain. It will still be in that same directory because the path is relative to this folder. So I could move this folder anywhere, and everything would still work. But in some other situation, you might want to use the absolute paths. And if you do that, then you could move the EDL files themselves and the chapters file, like everything that was generated. You could move all of that somewhere else, and it would still work. But you couldn't move, you couldn't move the folder or those files anywhere, because the path then would change. So you have to think about what you want to do and decide whether you want the absolute path or a relative path when you're saving those files. So that's the difference between what they do, edl-save-files-relative and edl-files-absolute. Now, let's try out, let's see what else we can do with these two options. And what we can do is we can pass a different directory to save these files to. So let me actually remove these search results files from here, and let's generate some new ones. So right now we just use dash lowercase and uppercase f without any value, but as we already talked about, these options take an optional argument. So let's now talk about what you can pass there as that argument. Now, this is kind of the thing where you need to know how to pass that argument to these options so that it works. And this is why I put this section here that describes this idiosyncrasy of get-opt and how it handles options with optional arguments. Essentially, with long options, let me explain this. Basically, with required arguments, you could use either pass the option and the value as two separate arguments. So here you have your script, then option, the short version, and value. Alternatively, you could put the value right after the option letter. If you're using a long version, you could also pass the option and the value as two separate arguments. This is when the argument is required. There's like two possibilities for both the long and the short. So with the long version, with the required argument, you could pass either two separate arguments or connect them, pass them as one argument, and put the equal sign after the option name. So this is for required arguments. You have like two options. Basically, the difference is that you can. The thing is, with required arguments, you can pass options as two separate arguments, like separate them by a space, basically. So they become two separate arguments. Or you can pass them as one argument. But now, with optional arguments, you can only use this second option. So the value and the value has to be connected to the passed directly after the option letter, and for the long version, it has to go after the equal sign. With the space, it won't work in this case. So that's kind of the thing about passing options with optional arguments, because of this option parsers get-opts kind of peculiarity. So now back to our edl-save-files-relative and absolute options. Let's take a look at what we can do here. So these options take optional arguments. So I have to pass the value directly after the letter, like this. If I use the long version, I would have to use the equal sign here. So this is not going to work with this because it's an optional argument. But as you can see, like with this -t option, I'm still able to use the space because in that case that's a required argument, and you can tell that because you can see that because this value here is not enclosed in square brackets like this. So okay, that's how to pass the value correctly. But now let's actually see how the syntax works. So you have three options here. You can either pass the path or the file name, or both path and the file name together. Now, so we're still in this directory, and this watch command is running here, so this will show us what gets created here. So Let me see. Have I? Yes. Just checking if I included the hidden files. So let's put those. Let's pass a path first, like a directory. So I'll call it test. Let me actually call it dir. So now if I generate those files, and let me mute the subtitles output so that we don't get a bunch of text in the terminal. So dash lowercase f and dir directly attached to it because it's an optional argument to the dash f option, lowercase f. Now if I press enter, it tells me that the directory dir doesn't exist, and it gives me an option to create it automatically. So let me do that. I'll pass this d here let me pass it as a separate thing so that we don't get confused. So it's visually more clear. So now if I press enter, we can see that a directory got created and all of our files went into that directory. So this is me passing a path. I'll explain what this slash means in a second. Let's now take a look at, so let me remove that directory. Man, sometimes it doesn't refresh for some reason. I don't know why. But, okay, so let's give it another go. Let's try the file name. So now with the file name, you have to pass like a name and then .edl at the end. Like .edl is what makes search and subs able to tell apart a file name and the directory. And there's like a small caveat to this when it comes to this /, but I'll explain that in a moment. So let's try a file name. I don't know, test.edl. So now, as you can see, it's not called search results.edl anymore. Now it's test.edl, and it's test -chapters, test -subtitles, and -video. So that's what that does. Let me remove those. Test. Okay, so now what if I wanted to create a directory that ended in .edl? Probably a super edge case, but it is possible. So let's say I wanted to create a dir.edl. But like, if I did this, then search and subs would say, oh, that's a file name, it ends in .edl. So that's what it would do. It would create a file called dir.edl and call all the other files dir hyphen, etc. So that's not what we want. Now, and the way to tell search and subs that this is a directory, like don't create a file, create a directory. You need to attach this trailing / to tell explicitly that this is a directory. So now if I press enter, it creates a dir.edl. So that's the way to distinguish a directory from a file name if it ends in .edl. Now, of course, you could always like attach that /. You could you could create just a dir /, even though it's not needed here, but you could, and like that would still work. So, but it's only required if it ends in .edl, and you need to specify that that is actually a directory and not the file name. Now, of course, you could also pass both of them, and you can, or both the path and the name, I mean, and in that case, you you just go like this directory. You can even have like several directories there, and so what were we calling it? Test.edl, and that would get created too. So now the directories are called what we wanted them to be called, and the file is also named test.edl, test hyphen, and so on. So that's saving the files. And of course, I used the dash lowercase f here, but this all of the same. This syntax for dash capital F is exactly the same. The only difference will be in the files themselves, whether relative paths are used in there or absolute paths. So we also kind of covered, as we went along, we covered this dash D option, edl-save-mkdir, that tells it to create a directory that does not exist. Also this dash Y to overwrite files that already exist. And let's see what else. Well, we almost covered everything. The only thing that remains is this one, and this is for cases when Search and Subs is unable to find a corresponding video and audio file to the subtitle, and there's basically two possibilities depending on whether this option is set or not. There's two ways it can go. So let's take a look at what that does. So let me first break a link between one of these subtitle files. Let me first see what subtitle files it found matches in. Text, and I'll print the statistics so that I can see the files. So this one had no matches, but so I'll take this first one. So I'll rename that file temporarily to something else. I'll just add an underscore here to the beginning of the file name. So now the link is broken, so now it won't be able to find this file. So let's see what happens. Now, of course, the search would still run just the same because it only works with the SRT file. But then when it would get to the playing part, it would run into problems. It still generated the file, but now we actually get a different clip here at the beginning. It starts with what I think it was the second search result in the previous test runs that we did. So we also got this warning message here that no video files corresponding to the following subtitle files could be identified. And we get the list of the files for which this is the case. So there's only one file here, but there could be several. They would be just listed like that, one after another. Now, this is the default behavior, so it just basically skips whatever it can't find. But if you wanted to be more strict about it and tell it well, if there's at least all of the files have to be there. If there's one missing, then throw an error and don't generate any edl files. So you can do that by passing this dash capital O option, edl-ignore-missing. And let's see what happens now. Now it didn't play, even though we passed the dash P option. And it says that no video files corresponding to the following subtitle files could be identified, and the file names, or at least in this case it's one file name, but could be several. And then it says set dash lowercase o edl-ignore-missing to skip segments with missing video files. So in this case it throws an error, and it also exits with the exit code 3. This is a new exit code that I added for this case specifically. So 3 is edl generation failed, can only occur if dash capital O edl-no-ignore-missing is set. Exit code 2 is no matches were found, and exit code 1 is a general error. And 0 is success, no errors. So yeah, that's when the only case where when you get the exit code 3. So yeah, well, we basically covered all the options. There's only one thing that I wanted to also just clarify about the fact that all of these options come in pairs, as you probably noticed, and the reason for that is, again, you can change the default in the config file. So you could, for example, like let's take this -o option, the default one. It always says like which one is the default. So let's take this -y. It has a description, but -Y, it also says this is the default. It means that its counterpart is not the default. But you can make the default whatever you want by using the config file. So let's take this like -o lowercase or uppercase option that we just worked with. So we can see that the default is edl-ignore-missing -lowercase o, and in the config file it's really easy to find because all of them are named just like opt underscore and then the same option name as just exactly the same as the long version in the config file. So it is edl-ignore-missing, and here it is, and the default is set to 1, which means that it is set. So 1 will correspond to the one that is not a no, basically, the one that is true, edl-ignore-missing. But no-ignore-missing will be the one that is set to an empty string. That would correspond to false, so that's a no-ignore-missing, and capital O, capital letter in this case means basically not that which is the lowercase referring to. So now if I don't pass anything, the behavior will be the opposite of what it was by default. It's by default it ignores missing, but I can now pass the lowercase o instead to tell it like, no, actually in this case just go ahead and play it. I don't want you to throw in there if you find any missing files. And that's what it'll do. Let's go ahead and try it. So that's what it does. So that's how that works. Yeah, this is basically what I wanted to show you. Like we went through all of the new features in search and subs. So yeah, let's see, what can we say in conclusion to this? Well, I hope you like this new feature. I find it's a pretty cool thing to be able to do, to just like generate this compilation based on the search results that like you can search for whatever you want in your collection of video files with subtitle files, and then you can watch those search results just generated live directly from that search. So that's a pretty nice feature. Thanks again to that person who made the feature request. I really appreciate it. And so yeah, this was a cool thing to do. And also I think, yeah, I wanted to mention this, but it slipped my mind. Basically, when I was coding this this new addition to search and subs, I actually recorded myself implementing most of the stuff. So I did some live coding videos, and I recorded quite a few of them. Like not in the end, like I ended up also adding some things like after I finished recording those videos, like fixing some bugs and sort of like adding some little things that didn't occur to me during that stage, like development of the script. But basically I recorded some live coding videos, and I'm gonna post some of those, maybe even all of them, probably shortly after I release this video. And so if you are into coding, and if you'd like to kind of learn some things about bash scripting, you might be interested in watching at least some of those, because as I kind of a lot of the things I find that are like in a lot of cases I find it's very beneficial to learn things in context when you're trying to do something, and then there's like a clear example of how certain constructs that you find in programming languages, how they apply, and how you can utilize them in your script, and like to what end, like, because the end is already there, like you're already trying to do something. So perhaps some of you who are interested in programming might find those videos to be something that you'd like to watch. So so check those out on the channel. They'll be I'll start releasing those probably gradually, not all at once, like probably in batches after I release this video. So yeah, but I believe this is it for now. This is what I want to show you. I hope you like this new feature, and yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this video interesting and valuable, and I'll see you in the next one.